Dion win.
Hi everyone, welcome back, maybe welcome for the very first time, and I'm here again with another So You Want to Get Into video, and this is a series dedicated to the directors of world cinema that you may or may not know about, and the best entry points into their filmographies, the style, the subtext, a little bit about their history, and why they are such profound filmmakers. And so far on this series, we have looked at the works of Tsai Ming-liang, Claire Denis, Pedro Almodovar, Kelly Reichardt, Nagisa Oshima, Hong Sang-soo, Olivier Assayas, so many. And this month we are going to be looking at the enfant terrible of the French New Wave, and that is François Ozon. And as you know, he is a staple on this channel. If you visit frequently, I review all of his latest titles when they are available, and as you know, I do love a bit of Ozon in my life. I'm not a lover of all of them, and we will talk about a few of them today because it's important to understand there are bad movies. There are bad movies from all filmmakers, but still we must respect their artistic integrity. Anyway, and the way we're going to be doing this is we're going to be looking at my initial experiences with François Ozon, then we'll be discussing the style, the subtext, and a little bit more about their filmography and body of work, and then I will give you 3 recommendations to their films. And those 3 recommendations will be good entry points, I think, for them. And we will be looking at the highest rated film that they have on Letterboxd right now. My personal favourite will be the second choice, and the third will be the all-rounder. The all-rounder encompasses everything and anything that makes this director so special and all the points that we'll be discussing today. So enough introducing, let's get to it. My first actual experience with François Ozon was Young and Beautiful, or Jeune et Jolie, which was a film I actually saw at a hotel when I was in the south of France quite a few years ago, and I thought to myself, what the hell is this movie? Who is this François Ozon guy? I was kind of enamored by it because it's a very daring subject matter and something that I found to be very deeply profound and unbiased. And this is a fascinating dissection of kind of sexual awakening within adolescence set out through the 4 seasons. And I thought to myself, okay, this is such a clean film. It's a very well executed, realistic film, but there are kind of very interesting tendencies as the film kind of unfolds. And this sense of non-judgmentality is so important to Ozon's work. And even when you see it as your first film, potentially, you think to yourself, okay, he really is going for it. And this is the thing about Ozon. By the time he made this film, he had made at least 10 films, I would say. And you kind of see somebody who's very comfortable within their own skin and very comfortable within their storytelling. And while I do think that this subject matter is very controversial, because we look at Marine Vach's character in this film, she's 17, she actually becomes a secret prostitute in the story. So it's actually kind of potent and very, very edgy and unbelievably French, I think. But what I think Ozon does so well with this is kind of growing this fundamentality of who she wants to be as a woman and how she kind of is discovering herself through this line of work. And I think this is the thing about Ozon, is that he's not scared to kind of open doors that are taboo. He kind of looks at everything on such a neutral palette, but allows you to formulate your own opinions. And I think that's why Young and Beautiful was that film that I thought to myself, I need to see more of this guy's work. And as time went by, I got to see films like La Man Double, I got to see By the Grace of God, and then I just went down the rabbit hole of watching a crap ton of his earlier films, which we'll obviously be talking about in a little while. Now to the style and subtext of François Ozon, and the first major point we need to discuss here is his idol within filmmaking is Rainer Werner Fassbinder, who, as you may or may not know, is one of the most prolific European filmmakers ever to have graced this green earth. And you can see a lot of Fassbinder's work in Ozon. Ozon kind of looks at the world in kind of a similar lens, but I think there is a bit more of this kind of surreal normality from Ozon, and you see this quite strongly. His latest film, Peter von Kant, is a gender flip role of Petra von Kant, which is fantastic, and we will discuss Peter von Kant on the channel very, very soon. And you see Water Drops on Burning Rocks, which is a film adaptation of a play that Fassbender wrote, and then Ozon made it into a film, which I found to be a really interesting film, but it's not one of my favorites. But I think this is the thing I've noticed about Ozon, is that once he's passionate and once he expresses his passion about something, he's not scared to kind of be out there about it. And I think looking at the work of Fassbender and looking at the work of Ozon, it's kind of, they're very beautiful parallels of each other. And I think Ozon and Fassbender are very kindred spirits. And that's what I really love about Ozon, is that he's not scared to talk about his heroes or kind of emulate his heroes. And as you kind of look at a lot of his films, one thing, well, there's numerous things that you will look and you'll see that the aesthetic is very strong. Most of his films are dark humor, satirical, very unbiased, deeply human. Sexuality is openly discussed, and he loves looking at outcasts and people on the fringes. And this sense of kind of desire and this fantasist world that he kind of likes to dissect in, but this realistic lens is what makes the film so kind of powerful, so unique, and so memorable. You look at films like La Mandible, you look at films like Swimming Pool, you look at films like Under the Sand, and they are all films that feel fantasist, but they are not. They have this sense of harsh realities, but we live within the mind, we live within our dreams, and I think Ozon kind of looks into this world in more of a unique way and more of a profound way. And I really do admire him for that, because the thing is, sometimes we do need to snap out of our minds, and we actually need to kind of sense the world for what it is. But sometimes our mind can take us into very unique worlds that we kind of want to be in, rather being in the realities that we are in. And I think in 1998, his debut feature is called Sitcom, and this was kind of a hello, this is me kind of awakening from Ozon. The film kind of caused outrage, it caused very divided opinions, and I think for me, Sitcom, what I really loved about it is that it takes the mick out of this sense of American sitcom and sets it in France, and this sense of the middle class socialites and having all of their issues thrown out there. There's mass shock factors. It's really something that kind of woke me up. I only saw it 2 years ago, and I thought to myself, damn, this guy is just not messing about. And it's kind of an interesting precursor for the future of what François Ozon has brought to the table, I think, because this kind of sense of shock factor is something that he brings to every one of his films. Even the safe films like Frantz or In Your House, or if you look at Summer of '85, there are senses of kind of non-conformity within them, even though it's kind of a nice, not monotone, but a nice level playing field. And this building of kind of a world is always unique. And I also love his exploration of love and sex, because it crosses all age ranges, and Charlotte Rampling is a prime example of his work. Charlotte Rampling is in many, many, many Ozon films, and this sense of her trying to discover who she is as an elderly woman is really unique, and I think you see these parallels quite often with her. Obviously, Swimming Pool is a prime example. Under the Sand is another one that I find to be really heartbreaking yet fascinating, and it's very similar to what Claire Denis has been doing, especially particularly recently with Juliette Binoche. I think it's a very French kind of momentum, definitely, but I think this sense of having no sense of gatekeeping or kind of keeping anything away is visible. Sexuality, all forms of sexuality are discussed in his films. They are seen, they are witnessed, and this sense of male-female balances, that everybody's equal. And I really do love that, because sometimes he has male-focused films and sometimes he has female-focused films, and that's what's so great about him. As we've discussed already as well, this sense of natural filmmaking is something that he takes quite seriously, because the thing is, when you look at these films, they are very polished, they are very tidy. I think Frantz is a very kind of shining example of how you can get a film right and make it look so perfect, to make the story work so well. And this is what we see with a lot of his films. They're very cold in kind of colorization most of the time. There is no kind of sense of emotional wave through it. What he allows you to do is to gaze into these characters, and these characters are so important, they're so formidable to understand what Ozon is about, and I think his dialogue kind of divulges even more. And this is what I love about Ozon, is the dialogue. The dialogue is so heavy hitting, it's so unique. It really kind of builds the momentum along with his kind of stillness that he portrays within his films, but there is a really interesting momentum that he uses with his actors, because his actors are so kind of crucial to his storytelling. And there are senses of thrills, there are senses of pure magic within his films. You look at something like 8 Women, which is a whodunit musical, and you think to yourself, wow, this is completely different to maybe his previous works like Under the Sand, but you kind of sense that ozonness in it. Or you look at something like Frantz, which is potentially a bit safer from him, and then you see something like Double Lover, which is kind of really thought-provoking, engaging. And that's what I love about it, but also this evolution that he has had, because he kind of goes in and out of different genres and never stipulates into one genre at all. It's like, potentially it's a musical, but there's more to it than a musical. Sometimes it's a thriller, sometimes it's a melodrama also. And he just kind of interweaves into these kind of different realms, which makes the film so unique and so different. And this is what I really do admire about him also, is that he is not scared to kind of tackle taboo subject matters, as we've talked about Young and Beautiful already. He looks at prostitution, and especially with a 17-year-old, it really kind of elevates the daringness of it. Or you look at something By the Grace of God, which looks at the Catholic Church and the corruption of abuse that has happened in the church over the many years. And then you look at something like Everything Went Fine, which actually looks at euthanasia. So he's never scared to kind of break into any of these territories, because what he gives is this sense of unbiasedness, and he allows you to kind of divulge the situation yourself. But this is the thing, the characters are the crucial element to kind of understanding why these people are in these situations. And I think Ozon is a good character director and he's a good director for actors, because he allows them to kind of portray whatever they want, but also he works these worlds around these really focal characters. The work ethic of François Ozon also is absolutely unparalleled. He usually has a film out every year, and he's still hitting them all out. You look at the last couple of years, you've had Peter von Kant, you've had By the Grace of God, you've had Summer of '85, you've had La Man Double. It just continues and continues and continues. And the fact that he continues to make so many films, and he is about 54, I think, by now, it's amazing to see how I would say there is a larger percentage of strong films compared to weak films. And some people would disagree with me on this, and that's totally fine. But he is a filmmaker that really has made a lot of substantially unique pieces of European cinema. And I will say there is one film in particular that I'm not a massive fan, and that is Angel, which was his English language debut. It's really melodramatic and quite interesting. Michael Fassbender is actually in it, but the human connection is not necessarily strong in that film. And I never really understood how that does not transcend into that film particularly, because most of his films are so character driven, and you kind of eventually realize what the conviction of the actor or the character is. But this one was just the one that I never truly loved. And it's a shame really, but I do admire everything and anything that he does. And potentially it's a film I should kind of revisit. So as you can see, Ozon is a man of many talents. He breaks into various genres. He looks at so many fundamentals of the world. He looks at a very unbiased eye, and he's deeply human. And this is really the kind of fundamentals of what I love about him as a filmmaker. But also I like the way that he kind of pushes my boundaries and kind of understanding more about the world around me and the people that you may or may not know. And this is the thing, you have somebody like Lars von Trier, you have Gaspar Noé, who shocks you with very heavy visuals and the subject matter, but I think the underlying essence of Ozon is like he piques your interest into so many topics and so many genres, and that's what I truly love about him. And this sense of being even playing field for men, women, transgender people, all sexualities, all creeds. I love that about him, and that is why he's such a special filmmaker. Now then, to my 3 recommendations for you, and the first one will be the considered masterpiece of the highest rated film on Letterboxd right now, and that is Frantz. And I will say this is potentially one of the most stunning pieces of French cinema that I have ever seen. It is beautifully captured, it's beautifully lit. This sense of black and white going into color sometimes is beautifully gazing and haunting, and it really fits to the tone of the story that he's trying to say. And this is a post-World War I film which kind of looks at grief and love and the barricades of nations between Germany and France. Paul Auber's in this, and Pierre Nini, who I absolutely adore in this film. I think this is a film that is so rich in its storytelling, but you are so engrossed by the actual filmmaking itself. And it really does hit home. It's not personally my top favorite Ozon film, but it's easily my top 5 for sure. And so many people do love this film, and I get it. But the thing is, it's un-Ozon in a weird way, but also it is very Ozon in another way. And I kind of love this sense of exploring grief and love in the way he does. And Frantz is a absolute stellar film that could be your first entry point into his filmography. Now then, to my second recommendation, and this is my personal favorite, and for a very long time, I would say Double Over La Mandable was my favorite, but 8 Women is currently my favorite Ozon film. It is a melodrama, comedy, whodunit musical. That's all you need to know. It's absolutely fantastic. It puts like the Knives Out of the world out of, you know, I'm not a big fan of Knives Out anyway, but if you watch 8 Women, you'll be like, fuck, this movie is absolutely stellar. It breaks all the boundaries of the genre and is so unique. It's so magical to look at. It has this amazing kind of 50s vibe, the colorization, the costumes, the songs, it all builds together. You know, it's got Catherine Deneuve, it's got Isabelle Huppert, and I love seeing them singing and dancing and going through this story. And what I really do love is the twists and turns. The ending is absolutely fantastic. And I really do wish that there was a Blu-ray available within the English language for more people to see, but you can see it on streaming. That's how I actually saw it. I do really want a copy of it. But 8 Women is phenomenally good. Again, it's not necessarily Ozon, but it is very Ozon at the same time. It's really special, and if you are a big fan of whodunits and you've not seen 8 Women, please do check it out. Now then, to my third choice, and this is the all-rounder, and I really had to go with Swimming Pool because this is potentially one of his most accomplished works, but utterly Ozon, because it looks at age, it looks at sexuality, it looks at kind of the building of the fundamentals of being human. It's very thrilling. It's got one of the kind of most ambiguous endings to a film that you'll ever see, because you will be asking to yourself, what did this all mean? And this kind of setting that he provides is so clean, calculated, and very normal, but the inner foundations of Swimming Pool is something that I find to be so unbelievably bizarre, unbelievably fascinating, and it's so thrilling. It's such a short kind of runtime as well, but you just want to know more. And I think Charlotte Rampling is fantastic in this. I think this is, again, another great Rampling performance. You look at Lucie Sagnier, who is amazing in this film also, and I love the parallel of age within this film. It's something that we've talked about today. But it really just follows the idea of a fantasist desire, sexual, ballistic crazy film that really just shows you why François Ozon is one of the best filmmakers working in the world today and one of France's finest filmmakers of all time. So then, that was my video. So we want to get into François Ozon. If you are a big Ozon fan, please let me know in the comment section below what your favourite Ozon film is. And if you haven't, please let me know which other directors you would like me to cover on this very series. I do consider a lot of your requests. I've had one for Pasolini recently, and I will be definitely making that in the near future. But the next one I will be having is probably Anhui or Obayashi. I'm not sure yet, I'm still deciding, but I really enjoy making these videos. They do take quite a lot of time to make, but I do love the kind of conversations that it builds, and it's one of the main reasons I do it. So like, share, subscribe, do as you please, and then we'll be back with quite a few reviews over the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned and take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.